Starling, welcoming you to the Save Your Breath show, where I used to like to say, where we help parents eliminate the stress and aggravation of parenting. And that's still central to what it's all about for me. But as I move through time myself here lately, I've focused a lot of my attention on that specifically with parents of adults. So forgive me as I go through my transition here. If I seem a little flustered and fluttered and mixed up, it's because I'm trying to sort through that and get a handle on how I'm going to direct it smoothly from just talking about the children and our offspring as we're bringing them up, to that point in time where they are actually adults and we're still having whatever it is that we're having as parents in the dealing with them, with what we ended up as a result of our parentage. So in any event, our subject today is emotional intelligence. There's going to be a general conversation, of course. These things are not separate from each other. But our guest today is an expert in emotional intelligence, and I'm very excited to introduce you to her. She is Yasemin Gokalp. She's a doctoral researcher and a certified life coach specializing in emotional intelligence. Her career journey started in the corporate world, helping leaders achieve excellence in their professional relationships that lead to high performance. Later, she built her own business helping individuals to create awareness of their own behaviors that lead to high emotional intelligence and further translate into success at work and in life. She believes every individual deserves a happy and fulfilled life with rewarding relationships. She believes that we are leaders of our lives and our children as well. We owe it to our children to be more emotionally intelligent so that they can have a healthy life, because they are learning every step of the way from us how to behave and feel and understand our feelings. Yasemin has 2 boys, 5 and 8 years old. She takes pride in sharing her research and expertise to help parents to raise happy and fulfilled children who are productive throughout their lives. She has a master's degree in organizational behaviors and currently working on her PhD in performance psychology. Welcome, Yasemin.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited to talk to somebody who's emotionally intelligent.
Well, I don't claim to be emotionally intelligent, but I know a vast amount of information about it.
It's an exciting subject for me because sometimes I question my emotional intelligence quite a bit. So we will be having some light shed on that whole thing. I'm so grateful that you're here.
Thank you for having me.
I have some questions that I wanted to make a point of asking you. I intentionally put your philosophy, what you believe, into the introduction. You believe that parents should be emotionally intelligent and so that they can raise healthy kids. I know you have a different view of the description of health than how it's perceived normally. So I first want to ask you, what do you mean exactly by raising healthy kids?
So when I started writing the chapter about emotional intelligence and how it affects our raising the children, I started to ask parents and grandparents this one question. If you had a magic wand, and if you had the ability to give just one thing to these beloved children, what would that be? And the answer was around very creatively about health. They meant the absence of physical and physical or mental illness when they say health.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But World Health Organization defines health as, and let me read it to you, a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. So as parents, as grandparents, We know exactly what to teach our children to be physically healthy, right? We make sure that they eat right, they exercise, they brush their teeth, we make sure we take preventive measures. And if they have any mental illness, we know what to do. We follow the protocol with the help of our doctors. But we don't really know exactly how to help our children to be socially and emotionally well. What is it anyway, right? In Harvard University, they started a study in the 1938. They asked the very same question. They wanted to understand what's the essence of life, what makes a man to be happy and fulfilled throughout the life. So these are the questions that we ask and try to understand so that we can raise happy and fulfilled children, right, throughout their lifetime. They tracked over 700 men for 75 years, testing them in all domains, health-related tests, mental-related tests, interview their loved ones, and they wanted to understand how their life unfolds so that they can track these information, what made them happy or what made them unhappy. It turned out that they found one variable that makes people happy, fulfilled, and healthy, which is the full description of World Health Organization's health description. And that one variable is having meaningful relationships in their life. So it turned out that having the ability to build a meaningful relationship that you can rely on for life predicts if that child will have a healthy life throughout their life period, throughout their life. So if you ask me what would you want, one thing for your children to have, I would tell you having the understanding and control over emotions, because that very skill helps children to build meaningful relationships. And that is the basic description, very basic description of emotional intelligence.
Well, see, there we have it, because one of the big issues in our society is what's going on with us emotionally. I mean,
Absolutely.
emotional shadow is cast on everything that we do. And one of the things that I happen to know personally is, when we get home, many times our family, because we're so familiar, they are our family, they're familiar, we relax into our worst behavior. And a lot of times, the emotional thing is the first thing to go. The blow up, the impatience, the ignoring them, the whole nine. And I think that a lot of times, I distinctly remember, it might have been my mother. No, it was not my mother. It was someone maybe at school who pointed out that people do treat strangers many times better than they treat their own families, because
that's
they take out the worries and the cares of the day out on the family.
Yeah.
So now, so tell us a little bit more about emotional intelligence.
So emotional intelligence is having the ability to managing, understanding your own emotions and also emotions of others. Daniel Goleman, a researcher on emotional intelligence, categorized emotional intelligence into 6 domains: self-awareness, self-regulation, social skills, motivation, empathy, and mindfulness. So emotional intelligence is not just one thing, it's a profile. In other words, our audience today, after watching this show, will not wake up tomorrow morning more emotionally intelligent. It's not like learning about emotional intelligence. It requires a lot of practice of all these domains. It's a mental skill to have.
And then it's understanding your feelings. Really understand. And tell me again what those individual pieces were. They were
self-awareness, Self-regulation, having the ability to control yourself if you're faced with a very tough, hard emotion. You know, have you ever done something or said something with anger and you kind of felt regretted after the fact? That is emotional control.
That's emotional. And we want to be intelligent enough to catch ourselves
That's right.
before it fully expresses in some negative way.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Now, some parents may think that being emotional is a sign of weakness. I think that men in particular have been, brought up to think that if they show their emotions, that they're somehow not being a full man of some sort. They're kind of coming along and getting out of that. And they may not choose to raise their children emotionally aware. What are your thoughts about that?
We see what you just described in the corporate world very much. Emotions, they think that leaders think that emotions are weakness. And, those folks are raising the generation now. So I totally understand why you would want to ask that question. It's true, our society dictates us to dismiss emotions. That's how I was raised too. But at the end, emotions are generated by our body. It's part of us, and there's no escape from them. And every individual is free to feel whatever the emotions they feel. What you do with the emotions that you have, what kind of behaviors that emotions lead to, is our concern as parents. So in the year 1983, Tony Damasio, another very well-known researcher, found that decision-making is physiologically impossible in the absence of emotions. So that means that we are under the influence of our emotions in every decision we make as parents. And our children are under the influence of their emotions for every decision they make. And parents can relate how creative these children get with their decision making from time to time. To be able to understand the behaviors of your own children, you have to understand their emotions. Emotions are very powerful data, and understanding them is a very powerful skill to have.
We're walking balls of emotion.
Absolutely. And on top of that, we live in an era of technology. When I was growing up, we had face-to-face interaction time with our friends and family, a lot of time. Nowadays, many parents can relate, including mine, I'm not excluding mine, our children spend a lot of time in front of technology, and face-to-face interactions replaced by tweets, Facebook posts, texts, and we don't really face-to-face interact anymore. Outside world is not secure. You cannot let the children go outside and play with other kids, so their time is very limited. So these kind of mental skills, just like any skill, requires a lot of practice. So our children of this era lacks that practice time. We started to see the disadvantages of this. So the suicide rate is the second leading cause of teenagers between the age 12 and 18. So in every single day in our nation, over 5,240 children committed suicide. So those are 6 to 12 graders. These children are not mentally ill. They just don't know how to deal with these tough emotions their social environment throws at them. Yeah. They don't know how to deal with bullies. They don't know how to deal with social rejection. They don't know how to deal with these kind of things. That's why their behavior is very impulsive. And it turns out, go ahead.
And the part of the problem with that is they don't feel that they can go to their parents. This is why we do the show. We want to have parents sort of wake up and say, look, pay attention to what's going on here, because if your child is not able to talk with you, to get some exercise in that emotional understanding, then these are the results.
Absolutely, because the children think that their parents do not understand them, which is true. We
Yeah.
don't understand the behaviors that the emotions generate. To be able to understand the behavior, you need to understand the emotion.
And
If you understand the emotion, they understand you and you understand them. And if they feel that understand, they'll approach you better.
yes, the parents have trouble understanding their own emotions. And,
Absolutely.
and of course, the children can see that. The offspring can see that. So why would I go to this person for help? They can't even help themselves. I mean, okay. I get what you mean. Is that, did you finish what you were saying? I'm sorry I interrupted there.
Yes, no, I'm finished.
Okay. Now, how does emotional intelligence of a parent influence the child's life?
It does. They do. So children, these kind of mental skills are learned in very early childhood age. Children start mimicking the interactions within the house, how the parents are reacting to these emotional issues, or how parents in between each other interact and handle these emotions. So what they do is they mimic, they take these patterns and they kind of mimic those patterns as a template for their own behavior, and that template becomes their main behavioral pattern. And then they go outside world and practice these patterns. So how emotionally intelligent a parent is, you have, as parents, we have to ask ourselves, if the way I react to stressors is what I wish my child to react to stressors, because they mimic you. So there are a few studies done. One study, they wanted to understand how emotional intelligence of a parent correlates to aggression in high school years, which is a very big problem. So it turned out that emotionally intelligent families, parents, have less aggressive children. So another study was saying they're looking at life satisfaction of the children. They wanted to understand if emotional intelligence of the parent has any influence of how satisfied is the child with their life. And it turned out that there's a strong relationship. So all these researchers telling us that parents need to educate themselves and look within to see how they can improve themselves so that they can raise less aggressive, satisfied from life children, happy and healthy children. So the point is actually, we don't always have control over the behaviors of our children. I mean, that's obvious. After they leave home to school, they control their own behaviors. But we do have control on, control over our own behaviors. So if I know that if I improve myself, my children will be improved as well, why not? Right?
Exactly. So it all starts, we're the meter that they use. We're the
Absolutely.
light and the meter, the measurings. There's a measuring, I can't remember the word exactly, that speaks to measuring, like how far to the left and right and to the center, how much we're in the center and how far to the left and right we are in any range of positive and negative emotion. Because I personally, I actually witnessed quite a few parents, especially as I was growing up, that they hung out on the negative side almost 80% of the time. And and their kids had varying kind of personality quirks because of it. I don't want to go into iterating the various ways that they were affected, but
the good thing is these skills can be improved. You know, as parents, we're not prisoners of how we were raised. These skills can be improved.
So how difficult is it then? That would be my question, to begin to monitor and understand what you're supposed to do.
It is not easy. So emotional intelligence is a profile, as I mentioned earlier, and half of the profile is self-mastery related. And it's not really easy to understand how your behavioral tendencies are, because those are normal to you. So we have a lot of coaching conversations around self-awareness. If you don't mind, I would love to practice one. Maybe we can get a little audience participation as well.
Yeah, that would
Do you
be
mind
fun.
if I ask you a question?
Well, I would not mind at all. Is it part of this? How can we be more emotionally intelligent? Was one of the things I wanted to ask you.
Yes, exactly. That is what I want to practice.
Okay, yes, I'm ready.
So, what I want to say is first, for every behavioral tendency that we have, everyone has their own behavioral tendencies, right? There is a representation in our brain called neural networks for that specific tendency. So we practice these behaviors in our day-to-day life, and as we practice them, those neural networks get stronger.
Yes.
So we want to understand what neural networks in your brain are strong, and if they are working for you or not.
Oh dear.
So that is the essence of self-awareness coaching conversations.
Now I'm scared.
Don't be. So I want to ask you a question, and we're racing against time. Okay. So I will ask you the question, and I want to ask, I don't need to hear an answer, so you can go crazy with the answer in your mind, but just tell me if you have an answer, yes or no.
Well, now do you want me to just give you yes or no, or
just yes or no?
Okay.
I will give you 3 seconds, and at the end of 3 seconds, I will ask you, do you have an answer? You just say yes or no.
Okay. But don't give me an answer if I have one.
Don't tell me, yep.
All right.
Tell me or think about one thing that you don't like about yourself. One thing that you don't like about yourself. Do you have an answer?
Yes.
Okay. So what we tested is a behavioral tendency of self-criticism. And self-criticism is usually very strong network for everybody. It's not just for you, it's everybody. And there is a specific reason why that happens, but I won't get into that detail. But I gave you 3 seconds, and 3 seconds is a very strong, fast time to have a neural network. That means that you practice self-criticism during your day, every day, several times every day. So when we realize that, you're not alone, I am very high on self-criticism myself, and everybody else is. It's our human tendency. 99% of the world population is the same way. Yeah. So, the questions are, did you know that you have been practicing self-criticism? Well, would you like to practice self-criticism going forward? If you were so fast to criticize yourself, how fast are you criticizing your children? How is that affecting your relationship with your children? Well, children will learn these skills from you and take it to their friends. How is that skill affecting your children's personal life?
Mm-hmm. Their social interaction.
Absolutely. So this is a simple self-awareness, how a self-awareness conversation starts. And you can tell it can take hours and hours of conversation to reveal what are these behavioral tendencies, which ones are working for you, which ones are not. And we pick the ones that don't work for you, throw them out, and I ask you, what are the behavioral tendencies that you want to have? And then we start practicing those, like compassion, self-love, and all other things, mindfulness, all other things that may help you and your children.
And you feel so much better when you do it.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So is that essentially the answer to my question of how we can be more emotionally intelligent? Is there something that specific that we can do that inject in what we're feeling and thinking that helps us to be more emotionally intelligent?
Absolutely. I mean, this was just an example of how a self-awareness coaching session can go, but the parents can ask this question to themselves as their life unfolds. Why do I feel this way? What's the origin of this feeling? What do I want to feel about this? Self-awareness is all about trying to understand exactly why you do what you do.
Exactly. Fantastic. I love that. I absolutely love that. Now I'm feeling better about the whole thing. I actually feel more emotionally intelligent right now. Just talking to you. Thank you so much, Yasemin.
No problem. I enjoyed our conversation together.
Is there something more that you wanted to say before we sign off?
I want parents to see emotional clues and these emotional behaviors or emotional data as a real data. And I want them to take it seriously because it's very important for the health of their children.
And for their health as well.
Absolutely.
Because they got their habits from their parents. And
Absolutely.
If we can remain conscious of the fact that we're just passing stuff along and sort of nip it, the buck stops here sort of attitude about it. Not only do we stop it here, but we're healthier for it as we go forward. When I think about the parents of adults that I work with now, a lot of them are struck with chronic diseases and all kinds of physical ailments. And these things started early, and they've been eating on them since they were children themselves. So, oh my God, that's a long conversation. But, and then, so if people wanted to reach you and to work with you directly, they would go to YaseminGokalp.com. And I understand that you have a specific offering on your site there. What is it again?
I have an ebook that they can request. And I also offer, if they mention our conversation, a free emotional intelligence self-awareness session if they choose to have.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me.
And I thank our listeners and our viewers out there in Save Your Breath TV land. And we'll sign off, and I look forward to seeing you here again next time.
Thank you.
Save Your Breath Show.